Greetings friends. Thanks for stopping by for a visit. If you enjoy the video, please subscribe.
I've been fishing the southern end of the Everglades since I was a kid, long before I was old enough to drive myself out there. My dad used to take me on weekends, drop the John boat into a canal somewhere between Big Cypress and the Tamiami Trail, hand me a sandwich, and let me sit in the bow while the gators slid under us like shadows. Most people picture beaches and neon when they think of Florida. I grew up thinking Florida was airboat trails, sawgrass, and the kind of silence that makes you hear your own pulse. I'm 27 now, and most of the time I go alone, not for any deep reason. It's just the only place I can actually think. My job keeps me plugged in all week, my phone buzzing nonstop, my girlfriend calling between meetings, friends hitting me up about weekend plans. But out there nothing bothers you, except mosquitoes and the occasional pissed-off heron. It's quiet in a way that feels old, like the land remembers what it was before humans showed up, and for a little while it lets you remember too. Anyway, that's why I drove down there last weekend. No big story behind it. Just wanted to fish, sleep in the truck, drink a beer or two, and forget about everything for 48 hours. I picked a spot I've used maybe half a dozen times, one of those narrow dirt pull-offs that split off from a bigger gravel road, the kind that doesn't show up on fishing maps or Google. You can only get back there if you know the turns. The canal beside it cuts deep into the mangroves, water so dark it looks like melted asphalt. Perfect place for snook at dusk, catfish all night, and tarpon in the morning if you're lucky. The drive was uneventful. Friday traffic, couple of tourists pulled over taking pictures of a gator way too close for comfort. When I finally made it out onto the old gravel road, the air changed, heavier, humid, swamp thick. The sky was already turning gold when I backed the truck into the clearing. No one else around. No tire tracks newer than a few days old. Just how I like it. I got out, stretched, breathed in that warm, earthy smell of wet grass and tannin water. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, you'd probably think it stinks. I rigged up a medium-heavy rod with a circle hook, tossed my cooler down by the water, and cracked open a beer while setting my line. It was perfect. Quiet. Still. The kind of still where the tiniest sounds travel forever. The buzz of one lone mosquito near your ear, the plop of a fish breaking the surface far down the canal, the rustle of some lizard darting through palmetto fronds. This is the stuff I go for. I don't even need to catch anything half the time. I should say this now. I'm not someone who scares easy. I've camped in storms out there. I've had gators swim right under my kayak. I've heard Florida panthers scream at night. Those things sound like a woman getting murdered in the woods. And the first time I heard one, I nearly dropped my headlamp into the water. I know the calls of barred owls, wild hogs, limpkins, the whole catalog of weird wildlife noises that send tourists running. You fish the glades long enough, and the swamp becomes predictable in its own bizarre way, which is why this weekend felt wrong almost immediately. Nothing specific at first, just a pressure, like the air was thicker than it should have been. I chalked it up to the heat at first. It was hotter than usual even for late summer. But it wasn't just that. It was a silence that felt focused somehow, like the swamp had turned an ear toward me. I cast another line, took another sip, tried not to overthink it. The sun slipped behind the mangroves, shadows stretching long across the water before disappearing altogether. I flicked on my lantern and let the bugs swarm around it while I settled into my chair. That's when it hit me, the feeling that I wasn't alone. Not in the normal way, either. When there's a bear or a hog nearby, you hear movement. You hear weight. When a gator's coming up on the bank, you hear the slide of its belly through the mud. But this wasn't sound. It was the opposite of sound. A vacuum, a pocket of dead, quiet pressing in around me. I remember sitting forward in my chair and just listening. There was nothing. No insects. No frogs. No night birds. Even the water seemed to stop moving. It was like the entire swamp had gone still all at once. And I was the only thing that hadn't gotten the memo. I looked over my shoulder at the treeline, half expecting to see someone standing there. A hunter, a hiker, a ranger, anything with a human shape. But there was nothing. Just black, tangled branches. This would have been the point where a normal person packs it in, but being alone out here is kind of my thing. And honestly, I was more annoyed than scared. I'd been planning this trip for weeks, and I wasn't about to let some weird vibe ruin it. For the record, I really wish I had left right then, because that feeling, the quiet, the pressure, the sense of being watched, that was just the beginning. The warning shot, whatever was out there that weekend, it hadn't even spoken yet. The first real sign that something was off came maybe an hour after the sun dipped behind the mangroves. I'd caught a decent catfish and tossed it back, cracked open a second beer, and was settling into that long, loose rhythm of night fishing. Cast, reel, listen, breathe. My lantern threw a soft yellow circle around me, and everything outside of it was swallowed by black and humidity. I remember thinking it felt too quiet, but the swamp does that sometimes. 1 minute, it's a chorus. The next, it's a vacuum. I tried to shake it off. I think I lasted maybe 5 minutes before I heard it. At first, I thought it was a bird. Some birds and frogs out here can sound shockingly human if you're not used to it. But this sound wasn't a croak or a screech or a trill. It wasn't disguised at all. It was a child's voice. Soft, thin, echoing just faintly across the dark water. Mom. I froze mid-cast. It came from across the canal, somewhere deep in the mangroves. Exactly where there's no trail, no campsites, no way for anyone to walk without sounding like an elephant crashing through brush. There shouldn't be anyone over there, let alone a kid. For a second, I honestly wondered if I had misheard it. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe my brain was still remembering some kid I'd passed on the highway earlier or something. Then I heard it again. Same pitch, same tone, same exact length of breath. Mom. My stomach dropped a little. Not from fear, not yet, but confusion. The Everglades is not a place you bring children after dark. Hell, it's barely a place you bring yourself after dark. Between the gators, the snakes, the terrain, a kid calling for their mother this far and meant one of two things. They were in serious trouble, or they weren't a kid at all. I stood up, lantern in hand, and called out, "Hey, hello? Anyone out there?" My own voice sounded wrong in the silence, like the swamp swallowed it before it even traveled. Nothing answered. For a moment, I thought maybe the parent would yell back, or a flashlight would flicker in the trees. Something, anything. But there was just the soft lap of water against the bank and the thick, unmoving black. I waited, and the voice called again, "Mom." But this time, it wasn't coming from the same spot. It was further left now, maybe 30 yards down the bank. Same intonation, same volume, same breath pattern. No footsteps, no snapping branches, no splashing. It had moved, but the environment hadn't reacted at all. I've lived in Florida my whole life. I know how sound bounces across water, but this didn't feel like echo. It felt like following. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was some strange bird call I hadn't heard before. Maybe someone was pranking me somehow. Maybe I was tired and sun-fried. But then it called again, closer. "Mom." This time from a patch of mangroves directly across from me. And this time, the voice had lost any illusion of being human. Not completely. A stranger might have still bought it. But to me, in that moment, something in it was wrong. Too precise. Too controlled. Too empty behind the sound. like someone had played a recording inside a hollow chest. I felt a prickling crawl up the back of my neck. "Hey!" I called again, louder this time. "If someone's out there, tell me where you are." Silence. Then, "Mom." Not pleading now, not scared, just repeating. Testing. I moved toward the shoreline, shining my lantern across the black water, squinting through the dense tangle of mangroves. The light hit nothing but branches and hanging roots. No eyeshine, no movement, no ripples in the water from anyone stepping in or out. But I swear, the voice was only 20 feet away now, and something in me recognized, on a gut level, that I was not supposed to look for it. There's a kind of instinct you don't learn. Your body just knows. Same instinct that makes deer bolt from a sound we can't even register. Something in my chest tightened, and this quiet, heavy message sank into me. Go back to the truck. Leave this alone. Whatever's calling is not for you. But I didn't go. I didn't leave. Not yet. I stood there like an idiot, lantern raised, skin crawling, waiting for something I wasn't sure I actually wanted to see. And then the voice changed. A rustle, light, deliberate, came from behind me. Behind me, the voice was now on my side of the canal, and it said, slowly, lower than before, "Mom." Not a question this time, a statement. I whipped around so fast I almost dropped my lantern, heart in my throat. But again, nothing. Just my truck parked under the trees, the cooler by my chair, the rods propped up, the mangrove wall behind the clearing. No movement, no breath, no shape. If a kid, any kid, had walked through that brush behind me, the branches would have been cracking like crazy. They're so dense they'll rip your shirt clean off if you're not careful. But the clearing looked untouched. My footprints were the only ones in the sandy dirt. The voice didn't come again. Instead, the swamp made a different noise, a long, low groan of shifting water, like something large had submerged or surfaced far down the canal. Not splashing, not swimming, just displacement. Almost as if something was settling back into place after standing too still for too long. I backed toward my chair slowly, trying to keep every direction in view at once. I wasn't panicking, not outwardly, but my skin felt electric, like every hair was standing on end. Something was watching me. I couldn't see it, but I could feel the weight of its attention. Focused, patient, curious. I packed up my gear without taking my eyes off the trilene, tossing things into the bed of the truck with shaking hands. I told myself I was just going to sleep in the cab tonight, just being cautious. Nothing wrong with that. But the truth, I didn't want to be outside anymore, not with whatever had moved around me, without touching a single leaf. I climbed into the truck, locked the doors, and shut off the lantern. The darkness outside folded in instantly, like it had been waiting. I sat there for a long time, letting the AC run, staring out the windshield at the mangroves. I kept expecting to see a shape emerge, a person, a kid, a shadow, anything that matched the voice. But there was nothing, not even the usual glow of gator eyes on the canal. Eventually fatigue won out, and I reclined my seat, keeping my pocket knife open beside me like it would help against whatever that was. I slept in broken fragments that night, waking up every time the wind rattled the branches or a frog croaked too close. But the voice never came again. Not that night. The swamp had tested me. That's what it felt like something old had brushed against the edge of my world just to see how I'd react. And I should have listened to the instinct that told me to leave the next morning, because the second encounter, that one didn't feel like a test. That one felt like a warning. I woke up Saturday morning in the cab of my truck, feeling like I'd slept inside a cardboard box someone occasionally kicked during the night. My neck was stiff, my back ached, and my mouth tasted like warm beer and mosquito spray. The swamp outside was already alive again. Frogs croaking, birds screeching, something splashing distantly in the canal. Everything sounded normal, almost too normal, considering what I'd heard the night before. For a while I sat there, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, listening for anything out of place. But the kid's voice didn't come back. No strange movements, no silence vacuum, just the usual morning racket of insects and waiting birds. And the sun breaking through the mangroves actually made me feel stupid for how freaked out I'd gotten. A kid's voice. That was all. Could have been some bird. Could have been wind hitting a hollow branch just right. Could have been my mind half asleep and hearing patterns where there weren't any. At least that's what I told myself over and over until I believed it enough to step out of the truck. I fished for most of the morning, farther down the canal, caught a decent-sized snook, watched a gator cruise past like a drifting log, listened to the buzz of dragonflies skimming the water. Everything was fine, peaceful even, so peaceful that by early afternoon, I decided to hike to another spot deeper in the mangroves where I'd had good luck before. Bad decision number 1. The walk itself wasn't far, but the trail was narrow and overgrown, and the deeper I went, the thicker the air felt. Warm, heavy, like wading through invisible water. Still, I pushed on because fishing is fishing and stubbornness is a personality trait I inherited directly from my dad. The new spot was gorgeous, an opening in the mangroves where the water widened out and turned glassy. Hardly anyone ever came here. It was the kind of quiet that usually made me feel calm. But even as I cast my line, some part of me wouldn't settle. Something in the back of my mind felt observed, not watched exactly. Observed, like I was a specimen being measured against a clipboard. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to catch sight of someone on the trail. But the only movement was the ripple of water and the flutter of leaves in the heat. By late afternoon, the sun had started sinking behind the treetops, throwing long slanted beams across the canal. The air cooled a little, the world dimmed, and then the swamp fell silent. Not gradually, not naturally, all at once. Every insect, every frog, every distant bird, gone. It was the same vacuum from last night, the same unnatural stillness that made the world feel like someone had pressed pause on everything except me. A cold shiver ran through the sweat on my arms. This time I didn't say anything. I didn't call out. I just stood perfectly still and listened, heart thudding. At first, I heard nothing but my own breath. Then something far worse. From across the water, soft enough that I almost doubted it, came my name, Dan. Barely above a whisper. I spun around so fast my lure slapped against the water. "Who's there?" I shouted. Nothing. The trees stared back. I swallowed hard. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was a bird mimicking a tone. Some species can do that, right? I started reeling in my line slowly, planning to pack up and leave. I didn't want a repeat of last night. But then the voice came again, closer this time. Clearer. Dan. And this time I recognized it instantly. It was my girlfriend's voice. Not someone who sounded kind of like her. Not a vague resemblance. No, it was her exact voice. The gentle upward lilt she uses when she's trying to get my attention. The same softness she uses when she calls me from the bedroom while brushing her hair. She was 3 hours away, at home, probably watching Netflix, or scrolling TikTok, or making dinner plans with friends. And yet her voice was coming from the Everglades. My stomach dropped. My skin went cold despite the heat. "Okay," I muttered out loud, hands shaking as I reeled my line in faster. "Nope. I'm done. I'm done." I didn't even look across the water again. I just grabbed my tackle box and slung my backpack over my shoulder, ready to bolt back to the trail. But then, "Babe, come here." Her voice. Exactly her voice. Playful, familiar, except empty underneath. I froze mid-step. Babe. Closer. Come here. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. My vision tunneled. My hearing sharpened. I felt like a deer that suddenly realizes the shape in the brush isn't a tree stump, but a crouched predator. I forced myself to move, stepping backward toward the trail, keeping my eyes locked on the mangroves. That was when I noticed something that turned my blood to ice. When the voice spoke, the mangroves didn't move. Not a single branch rustled. Nothing stepped forward. Nothing shifted. But the sound moved. Jumping angles, distances, heights, as if it wasn't coming from a mouth at all. Then it called again. Dan. This time it was right behind me. I didn't turn. I just ran. I bolted up the trail so fast that branches sliced at my arms and caught my shirt. I didn't feel any of it. All I felt was the crushing certainty that something was following, something not bound by the sound of footsteps, or the rules of breathing, or the logic of living things. Behind me, the voice kept calling. Baby. Too long, too stretched, too wrong. Dan. And then, glitching, like a recording warping in real time. Halfway down the trail, I heard something else. A scraping sound, like something dragging along a tree trunk. No rhythm, no pattern, just a low, deliberate scrape that seemed to pulse with my heartbeat. I stumbled once, caught myself, kept running. The closer I got to the clearing, the quieter the swamp became. Not natural quiet, but expectant quiet. Like the whole place was leaning forward to watch what would happen next. I burst out of the mangroves, nearly tripping on a root, and sprinted full speed toward my truck. My lungs burned. My legs shook. Sweat stung my eyes. But I didn't stop, not even when I heard one last sound. A soft, breathy laugh. My girlfriend's laugh. But wrong. Longer. Wetter. Like it came from a throat filled with fluid. I reached the truck, yanked the door open, dove inside, and slammed it shut so hard the whole frame rattled. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key into the ignition. The swamp was dead silent outside. The truck windows were fogged from the heat of my breath. For a few horrifying seconds, I was sure I'd see a face pressed against the glass when I dared to look up. Instead, there was only darkness. Then, from somewhere deep in the tree-line, baby, mocking, slow, almost amused. My body reacted before my brain did. I turned the key, floored the gas, and peeled out of that clearing so fast gravel shot out behind me in a spray. I didn't care if I blew a tire or cracked an axle. I just needed to get away from whatever had followed me out of the mangroves. Dan, come here. And every time, I freeze. I didn't stop driving until I hit a main road miles later. Even then, I didn't pull over. I drove straight home, white-knuckled the whole way, checking my rear view every few minutes like something might be keeping pace just out of sight. When I finally got home, my girlfriend asked why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I didn't know what to tell her. I still don't. I haven't been back to that spot. I don't think I'll ever go back to that spot. And the worst part, sometimes when I'm in bed at night and the house is dark and quiet, I swear I hear her voice again, soft, playful, calling from somewhere deep inside the walls.
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more stories like these, please like and subscribe.